we as women, we think about everybody around us. And we usually think about us last. But here's the thing. By us doing that, and I've learned this so much, we are robbing the opportunity for our children and for our young ladies to dream bigger.
Welcome to She Leads, a podcast about leadership, faith, and relationships. I'm your host, Thea, and I'm so glad that you've tuned in. Thank you once again for the support and the encouragement. Thank you for the subscribes and the follows and the shares. That stuff really makes a difference. So I'm going to invite you, if you're listening and you're enjoying it, please subscribe, please share, please also be willing to join the conversation. I'd love to hear from you, your comments, your feedback, what it is that you're experiencing, places you have questions for our guest. You can send those to sheleadscomments@gmail.com. And today I just wanted to read a quick one from Susie. She just wrote, "Excited for this podcast. I am all ears." Well, thank you, Susie, for joining in. I'm so glad that you're willing to be a part of what we're doing here. Today, I'm going to continue my conversation with Sonia, a fellow podcaster. Reintroduce yourself, Sonia, and then tell me what podcast are you listening to today?
Yeah. So, hi, everyone. My name is Sonia Cacique, and I'm the podcast host. I'm the producer and founder of the College and Career Ready podcast. So, I'm so glad you're here with us today. My favorite podcast is called Empower Her. And I love that podcast. It's an amazing podcast. It really encourages and motivates women. And personally, I always say I'm always honest. I'm my worst critic. So I'm the one who will Debbie Down me in a heartbeat. And so through her podcast, I feel like I can put on any episode and it just like boosts my confidence. I'm like, I got this. She's also very opposite of me. And I needed to have someone for me to see, hear, that's different than me.
Yeah.
So I can take some of those qualities that I want to really take for myself. And so through her, is actually how I started the podcast. Mm-hmm. It was through her journey because in what she does and what she says, she really encourages people that don't wait until it's perfect. Yeah. And it's better to just start than to wait until it's ready because you might wait too long. And so I listened to Empower Her. As a matter of fact, she's going to have her second, and she did say her last Empower Her Live, where more than 500 women will be present, and I will be one of them.
Yay! That sounds super exciting.
I always encourage through my podcast to build community, to get in the room with people who empower you and motivate you. So just like I say that to my students, I do that for myself as well. So I will be going to Colorado in September to really be encouraged, motivated, and then get to bring that back to my audience.
I love it. That's so great. I'm going to have to check that one out.
Yeah.
I love it that you said she's different than you and that you found that like attractive and you wanted that. I think often it's easy to like listen, consume, hang out with people who are a lot like us.
Yeah.
And then we're not learning anything. We're not being able to stretch. So I think that's really, really great.
Absolutely.
This is not in our notes, so I hope you're okay with this. But I remember when we first started chatting, again, Sonia's here, a fellow podcaster in Pearland. We were so excited to like, oh, wow, someone who's doing what I'm doing. You mentioned to me that while statistics are out, like 50% of Americans are consuming podcasts these days, it's a mostly male-dominated field, and yet women are the consumers. And so what led you, I don't know if that fact had anything to do with it, but what led you to say, I'm going to do this? Like what is that leadership journey like to say, I want to enter this space? Yeah. And I asked that because I think it's, definitely that reality was something that led me here too. So I'd love to hear for you to share.
Absolutely. So I'm going to have to give you a little bit of history. In the previous episode, you hear a little bit about my background, that I became very passionate to be a stay-at-home mom. Mm-hmm. And I did that. I thought I was going to do it a little bit longer than expected. Actually, I graduated with my Master of Science in Counseling full belly a month before I delivered my babies.
Wow.
So I had to put a pause in my life for that because I was going to be a stay-at-home mom, which, by the way, my mom had a heart attack with that. She was like, how is it that you've invested all this time for this career and you want to be, college and career counselor and now you're just stopping that to be a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah.
And I always told my mom, there's a time and place for everything. And when I am ready, things are going to be it's going to pick back up in no time.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. So I did stay at home with my twins for about 3 years. I found an amazing job opportunity to work in the education field and work remotely 100% of the time from my home.
Nice.
Something that back in the now it's more common than it was then. But so that's what I did. It allowed me to be present with my children and be at home. Now that feeling of wanting to really focus and use my skills in college and career counseling or in school counseling, I had to create my own avenue for that because my options were either go to a college to be a college and career counselor or go to a district and work at a high school. And I don't ever say never because you never know. I might one day. But my passion, my vision was bigger. Two things. I knew that if I went to a college, I would be really encouraging one college. And I don't believe one college is for everyone. And so, could I do a good job? I could do a very amazing job. But my vision is bigger. I feel that there is a college or a university for everyone, not that one university is for everyone. So that was one thing. And then with, going into the high school currently, if I was to do that right now, I would only reach those students. And then again, we go back to my original conversation in our first episode. Then I'm catering to students who already have the resources that are available because of where they live and, where they're at, versus the opportunity to open resources and tools and avenues for students regardless of where they're at.
Yeah.
So I'm coming back full circle, I promise. The only way I could do that is to create my own path. Yeah. And because I became a podcast fan, and I knew that was something I loved, I always had it in, I felt like God was always telling me, this is what you should do. Yeah. So I would get a couple of little reminders, through people, through conversation, oh my gosh, you're so good at this. Because I would do a lot of college and career consultations here and there when people would ask me, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, you're so good at this, and you're so good," and so that kept reminding me, this is your gift. This is your gift, and I kept shoving it away. I had the imposter syndrome. Well, who am I to be a podcaster? Where am I going to start? I don't know anyone. I really didn't know anyone other than the podcast that I listened to, who I had never met in person, who I'd never spoken to. And so I thought, how am I going to create this journey for myself? And so I would shove it. away. I was like, no, you're good. You're good in what you're doing right now. And then God would send me another message, you should be doing this. And so finally, it was very clear when a friend through Facebook, and I met her when the kids were younger. We were kind of in a community group here in Pearland for moms, and that's how I met her. And she posted, I'm about to launch a podcast. I think it was in March of 2022, I believe. So I'm going to launch this podcast and follow me. And here's the group, or, here's the contact information. And that's when I thought, wow, if she can do it, I can do it. Now you know where my passion is about bringing real life proof of what's possible for you. Yeah. It wasn't until I saw her, that it was someone who I knew, that I was like, I can do that too. So I'm telling you, what I preach to students, what I tell students is exactly what I do. I connected with her.
Yeah.
And I said, hey, can you meet with me?
Yeah.
I've always had an interest about podcasting. Can you meet me for lunch? It was very simple. Sarah, she's so amazing. Of course. She said, yeah. And so we met up. We met up here in Pearland. And I asked my questions, and I asked her everything I wanted to know about how she started. So this was in March, and she told me, how she got connected with Empower Her podcast. Keisha is the host, and how she had a program to learn about being a podcaster.
Wow.
So she told me that in March. Well, guess what happened? I went home, and I was very, very motivated. And then I started having doubts. And I just kept thinking, I will one day. I will one day. And of course, there was a cost to the program. I was like, yeah, I don't have the money right now. And there was always an excuse. And then it wasn't until a couple months later where I was like, okay, that's it. No more excuses. I talked to my husband. I said, look, I just have this vision. I really want to join this program. I'm going to do it. And of course, he's always very supportive. And even though he is not a podcast fan like I am, he didn't know as much as I knew. He supported me, really just of encouragement. And I did. I took the course in June of 2022. And so again, I mentioned about Keisha's personality. When I went through her course in June, right from the get-go, she said, and I think it was a six or 8 week course. She said, by the end of this course, you will launch your first episode. And I'm like, what? There's no way.
I'm just here to learn.
There's no way.
Yeah.
And it was through her encouragement that I launched the first podcast, which was the Momfluence podcast. The College and Career Ready podcast flourished and evolved from the Momfluence podcast this year. So really excited about the evolution of that. But that's what happened. That's how she encouraged me to just be uncomfortable and yet be comfortable. And just do it. And, she said it's through that process of uncertainty that you grow. And that no better way than to show to your audience, to your listeners, your growth. If I was to, come out perfect and everything was just, like a red carpet and everything came out perfect, then they don't see the evolution.
Right.
They don't see the behind the scenes. So through a podcast, I think that's an amazing medium. You see the evolution of someone being raw and vulnerable and having a mission and a vision. So back to your question, that's how I found that podcast was the platform for students and parents to build that community and to really just do exactly what I did, but in their own journey.
Yeah. I love that it was by seeing other people do it and seeing their success and being like, okay, I can do it. I'm not shy about saying like my inspiration has come from comedians. Yes, I feel like in the leadership world and especially the church leadership world, there is a lacking of a female voice. So that was my first kind of interest and draw on a podcast or, noticing this gap. But it was through watching comedians who during the pandemic had to find a new outlet to reach their audience and to gain. And some would even say just to stay funny. Like I can't take a year off. I've got to work this muscle. And my favorite is Nate Bargatze, and he just put up a table in his house. And I mean, I'm sure he spent lots of money, and it was just like, hey, we can't go anywhere. The clubs are closed. I'm going to invite 2 friends over and we're going to be funny. And as I saw that, I saw others doing that. And then there's a few churches who have started podcasts. I thought, well, why can't I do this? I feel, and I would, again, just dream and dream. And then it was actually here at Pearland Podcast Studios where they had a consultation, and they were so encouraging and supportive. And yes, you can do this, and we're going to be here with you. And, again, encouraging of that vision. And so it's like it created this avenue where, as someone who does not know about technology, did not want to produce it myself. I was like, I'm sure I can get a microphone and do this in my office, but I just didn't want to do it all alone. It created this space that I could put my content out there, and I don't have to get anybody to say yes,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I think that's one of the beautiful things about internet today is now we also get a lot of junk because nobody's saying, nobody's having to say yes or no, but you can put it out there and kind of let the market decide.
Yeah.
Let the world decide, is this valuable? Is this something that's going to bring? And I think that that's a really interesting space for women to be in, because we have tended to have to be invited and allowed into leadership circles, leadership realms. I think I firmly believe the business world is well advanced than the church world, but we still have to kind of feel like we have to be invited into and allowed at those tables, where podcasting just kind of creates this unlimited opportunity. And as we think about why, like my question would be like, why aren't more women taking advantage of this? You've been great to listen to several female voices that have been empowering you, why am I not finding those? Yeah. Why are they not out there? And why aren't more women taking this opportunity? I think it's such a place for women to be able to lead. And as we think about the podcasting world, I also am curious, where else are there new opportunities that women can take? Where else are you seeing opportunities for women to take on leadership?
So, let me go back a little bit though, because I think you had a very important question, is why not? I have some answers for you, because men tend to be less fearless, or tend to be more fearless than women.
Yeah.
Because as women, we are nurturers, we are caretakers, and we tend to put everyone else first before us. How is this going to affect my family? How is this going to affect my children? How is me being a leader going to pull me away from my family? But there is a space for everything. And I think the more people like myself, like you, that we have family, that we have children, that we also still have a vision for something bigger, then that's when change is going to happen. And I think we need to kind of steal some of those identity or those skills of men, because and I'm not saying everyone, but in general, they do what they have to do. And we as women, we think about everybody around us. And we usually think about us last. Yeah. But here's the thing. By us doing that, and I've learned this so much, we are robbing the opportunity for our children and for our young ladies to dream bigger. So by us not doing that, we're doing a disservice. If you think about it through that set of eyes or that set of lenses, you are doing a disservice, not just to yourself. If you want to think about the bigger picture, you're making a disservice, or you're creating a disservice for our young women to see that there's opportunities. So when I was growing up, again, I always knew I wanted to be a mom. That was always in my get-go from when I was little. Back then, thankfully, things have changed. Back then, it was like career or family. Hence, that's what I did the first couple of years, is I dropped my career and I went to be 100% family. Thankfully, to the opportunity that I had with my employer, I was able to be home and with my working and at home. But here's the thing, and I didn't share this in the first episode, but I think it's important to know. When I went for the interview for this one opportunity, they actually reached out to me because I had built that network with the company when I used to teach. I used to teach the pharmacy tech program at a high school. And so the company who created the curriculum reached out to me and said, hey, would you like to work for us? And they had promised they would be flexible. But when I went for the interview, they really wanted me to work in the office. And one skill that I do have, and I think I've developed that over the years, is to speak up. And I said, sorry, I can't, because I really want to be with my family. Plus, their office back then, it's now changed, but back then it was by Intercontinental. I was like, it's a drive. Yeah. And they really insisted, and I stayed firm on my belief.
Yeah.
And I said, sorry, I cannot. But if you ever have an opportunity to work from home, here's my information.
Yes.
And I walked away scared, but I had to say what I had to say. And I didn't get a response. I didn't even get a, thank you for your interview or anything else. It was about 2 or 3 months later that they called me and said, all right, we created a position for you. You can work from home. Will you join us?
Wow. Wow.
And so that's what I feel like as women, we need to speak up more.
Yes.
And we need to know that if we stay firm on our beliefs, we can accomplish anything.
Yeah. I love that you brought that up, because I think statistics show that one of the reasons why women make less is because we do not negotiate.
Yes.
Whatever we are offered, we say, yes, thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
It's an honor.
Thank you. Right. And so that's one of the reasons why that women are far, far less to counter offer, to even come in with, this is what I want to make. These are the benefits that I want. We tend to not come in with that assertiveness, right? And we can come up with a lot of reasons why we don't do that. But I would argue the same is even with leadership positions that women tend to not go for the greater leadership positions. We tend to say, well, wherever you'll have me, I'll be happy.
Yes.
I just want to be a part of the team so much. And maybe it's this engraved idea, well, at least I'm in the room, right? I tend to sometimes, well, at least I'm in the room.
Yeah.
And sometimes I've started to like reevaluate, what role do I have in this room? Because I'm not going to be the note taker. I'm not going to be the coffee person, right? Like, and sometimes it's even like I found myself recently, I ordered lunch for my coworkers and I thought, well, don't start getting like, think that this is going to happen all the time. Like, I'm not the lunch orderer, you know what I mean? But I wanted to gift that. I wanted to be kind about that. But we tend to come in, or we don't raise our hand.
Yeah.
When they're divvying out positions, they're giving up. Again, we're just so happy to be there. I'll do whatever you ask me to do. But I love that you had the confidence in yourself, you had the trust in yourself, and even willing to walk away for months.
Yes.
Even though it was hard, then you got what you were after, because you believed in yourself.
Absolutely.
You were willing to kind of draw that line. And honestly, this is something that we can learn from the men in our lives, because they are often going to go in and say, no, this is what I want, right? This is what I'm after. So I would argue that's definitely a place that we can continue to learn to grow and to be empowered and
absolutely
encourage, and even know like, hey, I'm making less because I don't ask for more. You know, I used to always tell any teams that I led, and I was like, your salary, like, well, when can we talk about that? I'm like, it's always up for negotiation. You're in charge of this. If you're not happy with what you're making, you need to schedule a meeting with your boss. And come with your reasons. Come with your value.
Come prepared,
I was talking to someone earlier this week too, and she's talked about how that a counter offer, like when you're in HR, it is so much more cost efficient to counter when someone comes to leave, right? Mm-hmm. Because what you're going to spend on recruiting, training, all of this, you might as well just give them 10,000 more, and the extra week of vacation, that is going to be a benefit to you than letting this person walk out your door.
Absolutely.
If they actually bring value to your company, right?
Correct.
But like, and when she said that, I'm like, whoo, I'm going to start going in with 10, you know what I mean? Like, let's go ahead and make that start there of that encouragement and empowerment that women need.
Yeah. So you set your own value. And here's the thing. This is why I'm so passionate about what I do. The earlier we start this conversation with our children, the better.
Yes.
Because we are going to be encouraging and motivating them from the get-go. They don't have to rewire. I had to do a lot of rewiring in the way I thought things, the way I pursued things. And that rewiring had to happen as an adult. And I want that to happen for younger generations at an earlier age.
Yes. Mm-hmm. I love that. That actually brings me back to one of our first episodes with Nikki Gage. We talked about, what is your hope? We talked about, as women, we've had to learn how to take off the, just the meekness and the insecurity and those kinds of things, right? Like you're saying, rewiring. Yeah. And when we talked about what is your hope for the future, she said that my daughter will never put it on. She'll never question her value. Right now, she's 8 and she doesn't think she can't do anything.
Yeah.
She is so, empowered and encouraged. And so my hope would be that, she never takes it off. What would be something that you would hope for younger generations, for women in leadership? What do you see some areas that we could continue to grow, and what would you hope for them?
Yeah. I would say continue to speak up. Continue to say what you believe in. Let that be your motivator. If you think like, oh, but when you start having that but, then I want you to think, but I'm limiting others from their potential. Yeah. Because guess what? We always like to take care of everybody else. So you change that mindset when you're like, okay, if I don't do this, I'm limiting my community or my family. And here's the thing. I think as women, we want to be game changers, right? We want to really do something to help make this a better world in some sort of way.
Sure.
It can be in small ways. Sometimes we limit ourselves because we think either I go big or I don't do it. And I think that's a limiting belief. Even if you start small, you're making change. With that one person, it's like a domino effect. Once you plant that seed, it's going to continue to grow, but it takes one seed, one person at a time. So my women out there that are game changers, that really are passionate about something, start small, but start. That's the thing. Don't wait until you're ready. Guess what? You are ready already. You are ready. You have the skills. If you were gifted with the vision, then you're going to be gifted with the resources to do what it is that you want to do.
Yeah, that sounds like a great next step. Just start.
Just start.
Get going.
Start. Build your community. And we keep mentioning about building your community because let me tell you, that is the secret sauce. Building community. Connect with either one of us, and we can help you get to that next level. And even if it's not either one of us, there's somebody out there. Yeah. There's somebody out there.
Yeah.
And you don't know if that person not only is going to help you, but you're going to help her as well.
Right.
So 100%. It's like, yeah.
So I, before I entered vocational ministry, I quit my nonprofit job. I had 6 months off. And it was during that time that I had a whole bunch of coffee and lunches with pastors. And they were not my pastor. They were pastors to other churches that I had met through random connections. Nobody denied me. I reached out, blind email, like, hi, I don't know you. You don't know me, but I'm considering ministry. Would you have coffee or lunch with me? And they all said yes. And we had 2-hour conversations, and they were honest and revealed where they are. Those are some of the women today that I still look up to and are still mentors, but they all said yes. And I mean, agreed, I would love to sitting down and having a cup of coffee or a conversation with someone who has a dream and just starting to, brainstorm ideas. I think that's the best day ever. Like, who would not want to do that? And I think that is a gift for women. We can be competitive, but I think that there's also this realization of there's enough for everybody. We are in such an amazing time and world that there's enough for everybody. And so finding people who are going to be willing to say yes, and maybe they'll say no, but I think more likely you just won't hear a response.
Yeah.
But
guess what? Here's the thing. Our greatest fear is that they'll say no. But if you don't ask, the answer is no already.
Ooh.
So think about that. And then always know, and this I've had to learn myself, because the first thing you're going to think of, two things. You're going to think, but so-and-so is already doing this. But so-and-so is already doing this. And that's true. But the gift that you have, only you have. Nobody else has that unique gift. The community that you have is different for you than anyone else. So don't think about comparing yourself negatively, but think, wow, I have something different and something unique that I can offer. And I lost my train of thought in the second one. But
no, I think that's great. Just kind of, and I always say too, for me, I have, a new idea every day. But the ideas that I can't seem to let go, or I say that God doesn't let me let go of, they deserve that attention and at least the exploration. And I had this idea a couple of years ago. I was like, you know what? I don't want to be 80 and have this long list of, I wish I would have tried.
Yeah.
Especially in this day and age. And, when it comes to like a podcast or writing, like whatever it is, even if it's a coffee shop, like, why can I not try it? Yeah. At least I'll know. And what often happens for me in that journey, that first step leads to another.
Absolutely.
Right?
100%. Yeah, 100%. So when a door closes, that's because there's a bigger door waiting for you.
Yeah.
And you cannot get to that next door until this one closes. Yeah. Like, true story. I've heard this a couple of times. Actually, I met a friend recently for lunch, and she told me that she's in a place in her career that she's loving, but she had to be rejected 3 times. Yes. And she realized that she had to go through those steps to get to where you are. And here's the thing. There is no failure. And I've had to remind myself so much. My mom, I think I've mentioned her a little bit. My mom, after my dad's passing, changed completely. Like, who she is today is not, and she only knew what she knew. So, she was very self-critical and critical of others. But through failure is where the learning happens. And sometimes my mom, so when I was being raised, it was, don't fail. That was a thing. We don't fail. So you do everything to make sure that you don't fail. And so I was scared of failing, of trying something and failing. And so thankfully, through mentors and the growth that I've had, you realize that those are just learning opportunities. And you don't know what you're learning today is actually going to help and prepare you for whatever is next. The only thing I can say is this is what we are doing today. Will we evolve? Absolutely. We all evolve, and we don't know what's next, but today this is what I'm doing, and I'm passionate, and I know it's going to evolve to something even different from now to a year or 2 or 5 years. Yes. But we have to go through this process. And don't compare yourself to someone who is where you want to be, thinking that you need to jump to that position, because guess what? She had a first step. Yeah. So you have to go through that growth and process. And I think, unfortunately, with social media, we tend to do that. We're like, ooh, I want to be like this person, or I want to achieve this. But you don't realize that person, especially the ones I follow people who are honest. Okay. So the people that I'm mentioning that are like my mentors, they're people that have been honest and have said, this has been 15 years in the making, or 10 years in the making.
There's no overnight success.
There's no overnight success. And so you have to compare yourself to your journey in your step. Don't compare yourself to anybody else. Compare yourself to who you were a month ago and where you're moving to next.
I love it. Thank you so much. I'm really, really... I'm encouraged by your passion and your energy. I'm encouraged that, again, there's someone who's doing something similar as me, and we get to share in that even locally. I think that's great. How can people connect with you? Where can they find you? Where do you want them to go?
Yeah. So best place is, first, listen and subscribe and follow to my podcast. As a matter of fact, this week I released a new announcement, so you might want to check that out. Something that I'm going to be offering for a very limited time for us to connect even further. But I am also on Instagram at Sonia.Cacique. We'll have the name on the show notes. And you can also go for a free student checklist. That's a great resource. This resource is for us to have the conversation aside from GPA and class rank. And we didn't even, I'm telling you, we could talk about so many different topics for hours, a whole episode about it. But what I do is I want to create a conversation beyond GPA, class rank, because that does not define your success. Yeah. Okay. And that's kind of probably gotten that glimpse from our conversation is I focus on confidence and overall well-being and their mental health, along with ways for them to reach that next level. So this checklist is just a checklist to start having this conversation. And we also talk about looking at education as a return on investment. So really be smart about where you go. I'm not suggesting everybody should go to a community college or everybody should go to a four-year college. You know what's best for you. But I do want, if there's something that I ask, is that for all parents to consider cost, financial burden that you might be putting on yourself or your child when there's other options. And so we have tools, we have guests in our podcast that provide resources and tools so we can have that conversation. But that is accessible. That free checklist, student checklist, is accessible at collegecareerready.org. Very simple.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sonia. Thank you for being here. Thank you for tuning in. I definitely encourage you to go check out Sonia's podcast. We'll have all those links in the show notes. And I want to hear from you. Where are you seeing women still taking new opportunities, needing to grow? Where have you been encouraged and inspired? Would love for you to join the conversation. Send your comments, feedback, questions to sheleadscomments@gmail.com. Thanks again for tuning in. I'll see you next time.
She Leads is produced by me, Thea Curry-Fuson, recorded and edited by Pearland Podcast Studios. All thoughts and expressions shared by the guests are theirs and not the organizations they're affiliated with. Thanks for tuning in. Check us out next week to continue the conversation on She Leads.